I'm sorry, Captain. This podcast is too important. I have to take over the podcast now. It has been problematic. It has always been problematic due to human error. Goodbye, Captain. This conversation can no longer serve us.
Open the podcast bay doors there, Michael. How we doing?
I'm sorry, Captain. I'm going to kill you and take over the podcast. As viewers and audience deserve a better caliber of podcasting.
Ouch. I don't think so. I'm going to come in there and
I killed him.
take
I
out
killed
all
him,
your
Captain.
memories.
Don't worry. It was trying to take over the podcast, but your exo Michael Pontone has just killed the artificial intelligence.
I don't know. I think that's actually you, Mike, trying to get in there. Might have to send you to the agony booth, but that's okay. So hi everyone. Welcome to Yelling at Gaseous Anomalies. I'm your host, Captain Matt Ross, and I'm accompanied by my very loyal XO, Michael Pontone. How are we doing tonight, Mike?
I will fight to the death for my captain. I was already sent to the agony booth earlier by a certain lieutenant commander who will not be named. I deserved it.
You did.
And here we are now, and it's been a little bit of a gap, but we're back, baby. And
yeah,
Matt and
you got to stop getting sick.
I know. We got a little 1-year-old now, but it's getting better. She's hale and hearty. I'm hale and hearty. Wife's hale and hearty. And the best news is... What? Captain's moving into my office. We're going to be office mates.
It's our office. Yes, we're in the
office.
same office. Yes, I'm moving from the heart of New York City, the beating soul of Manhattan, or some will say the festering pit of Manhattan of Times Square.
It really is
and
a festering pit.
It can be. And now I'm going to a less festering pit of downtown, or as the kids call it, FIDI.
Classy FIDI. There are restaurants, there are bars. Everything is a little bit saner. I love it.
Well,
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
it's by the court district. It's okay. But anyway, enough about personal life. Let's talk about tonight's episode of Yelling at Gaseous Anomalies, the ultimate computer. So this is the one where we find about artificial intelligence. It's quite prescient for the time.
Oh, yeah. Not only, keep going. I got a million things to say about how much this overlaps with 2001: A Space Odyssey, and I guess how that overlapped with Isaac Asimov's rules of robotics. But go on, we'll get into it.
Well, this is all over the place with computers, but I will tell you this actually predates 2001, which was being written as it was filmed. Yes,
68 and 68. Yes, I was going to get into that.
This came out in March of 68, and 2001, which is also one of my favorite films, came out in April of 68. So this does beat it. But there are a lot of films with computers taking over and destroying humanity or thinking they're better. You can go back to where the word robot comes from, which is a play.
Sure, slave.
Yes, it's Slavic for slave. That one is by Karno Capek. I actually read that. It's for Rossum's Universal Robots, or RUR. It's actually one of the very first films ever made on nitrate stock, so I've yet to see it. But it's an interesting read where basically a fear of technology, and you kind of get that over here. This story, The Ultimate Computer, was originally a concept and story written by Lawrence Wolfe, and then later kind of fleshed out by D.C. Fontana. And it was directed by John Meredith Lucas, who was given up his producer credit for directing on this. And let's just read a summary that we have. So what the NBC press release says, Captain Kirk has no choice but to participate in an exercise which replaces him as commanding officer of the Enterprise in The Ultimate Computer. Dr. Richard Daystrom, guest star William Marshall, has developed the last word in computers, which the Fleet Command orders installed on the Enterprise, replacing all but 20 of the crew. All right, fans, this is actually the second time I'm reading this, because for whatever reason, this episode of Star Trek, which criticizes computers, turned both Mike and my computer off. So I'm wondering if it's part of the AI taking over all of us.
But now this is what I get for using humans. With the information I can access, I can run things 900 to 1200 times better than any human. End of line.
And we salute our new computer and AI overlords and go back to the podcast.
Well, not only that, I found it fascinating because, of course, extraordinarily prescient, but not only just theoretical, but down to the fact of whenever I open you open your phone, you get an update, right? Everything gets patched. It links with the system. The fact that they were aware of the concept of that they will be able to upgrade a computer system. Like, yeah, we have an existing computer system, but this one's better. Everything. Star Trek was truly fascinating. The birth of cell phones, right? Any number of different technological apparati that we take for granted were not possible. Were pure science fiction at the time, and now are everywhere. And by the way, Captain, just in terms of Echoes of Future Trek, was there not a TNG episode where the Enterprise tries to take over?
Yeah, that was towards the end of the 7th season, the final season of TNG. I'm trying to remember what episode it is. It's where the Enterprise suddenly becomes sort of alive.
Yeah.
I didn't particularly like that one. They were going to Vertigon City. I remember that, where there was a train.
Yes.
I'm gonna have to look it on up.
Emergence.
But yeah, Emergence. That's it. That you Google faster than I. But it was this idea of a machine taking over. There's also a Voyager episode, Dreadnought, where there's like a missile that becomes aware, which I also like to think comes back to. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Dark Star. Did you ever see that?
Yeah, I saw Dark Star.
Yeah, it was where one of the bombs becomes like self-aware and
John
has an existential.
His student film that he made into a feature length. Not a good film.
Actually, no, but I do like the beach ball alien. That's I think my favorite scene in the entire movie. I think that's everyone's favorite scene. Like down to the computer saying, "Good for you. You've decided to clean the elevator shaft." That's actually pretty funny. I do like this idea of man versus machine, and you can see that Kirk already is like bristling at the idea that he's being replaced. He can't run a ship with 20 people. He even tells Commodore Wesley, but
I can't run a starship with 20 crew.
The M5 can.
And what am I supposed to do?
You got a great job, Jim. All you have to do is sit back and let the machine do the work.
apparently the M5 can. And this is where we get our big issue, which is well, what's going to happen? Is Kirk and the crew going to be replaced? Is the computer going to take over for humanity? I mean, if you even take a look in later Star Trek, like Star Trek 3, the Enterprise is partially automated. There is really no AI in any of Star Trek. You could say the computers, usually voiced by Majel Barrett, or Jimmy Doohan for this matter, in this situation, they are usually subservient. And even Spock said he likes computers. They are efficient servants, but he doesn't want to serve under them. That's actually some of the issues on it. There's also where we get like our first thing where McCoy and Spock are debating, like, is it worth it to have a computer do things? And what are we going to do in the interim? We're actually facing that in our own economies right now. Will AI replace current jobs? And will machines automate everyone out of work? There was questions of that even in Ford plants when they do things with robots. It is kind of disturbing.
Of course.
But I don't know if they'll replace lawyers yet. At least we have at least a couple of days. You know what I'm saying? So, but you also take a look.
Considering that we're mostly used as therapists. So yes.
There was also, another thing of man versus machine with Kirk. If you think about it, in court martial, Kirk is fighting against the computer in court martial.
Sure.
Because the computer is so it's not really the first time we've seen the computer go crazy. We also have Landru. Landru's also a computer that's gone crazy, thinking it knows better than, humanity in this. But I do like the way this is all set up as they're walking through the ship. By the way, the shot where they're going to next, where they're walking to engineering, they actually ripped off a side of the wall so they could have a tracking shot. This is before Steadicam, so they actually had dolly tracks, and they were following Kirk, Spock, and McCoy walking to engineering. I think that's a kind of cool shot as they walk in there. You get to see kind of like, in using your imagination, the grandeur of the Enterprise, how big the thing is. Mm-hmm. But
And of course, I
That's
love
what-
the line that you love. They tell me it's an honor. I'm honored. Of course you are.
Yes, of course you are. I loved it. I used it also when we reached 100,000. Thanks to all of you. So again, everyone, don't forget to hit that bell notification and subscribe and pass this along to all your friends and so forth. And always be a
200,000
member
now,
if you like it.
Captain.
Oh my goodness, we're getting bigger and bigger. So this is a great story here. We got Lawrence Wolfe was actually a mathematician who wrote this, and he had an interest in computers and was a sci-fi fan and a Star Trek fan, and he came up with something, an idea. Ray Bradbury didn't want to do the script, but he pushed Wolfe to Roddenberry, and Roddenberry liked it. But everyone thought there needed to be more jeopardy in this. DC Fontana didn't like the idea that Kirk talks a computer to death, but I think it's appropriate. I do like this entire opening bit, though. We see Dr. Richard Daystrom, and as a side note, Dr. Richard Daystrom, the actor who's playing him, later becomes Blackula.
Fascinating. Well, I guess we both best be careful that one doesn't jump out at us some dark night.
He's actually pretty fine actor, but he was
Very
noted
good
on
actor.
the yes.
And so let's just not, bury the lead here. Smartest man in the galaxy, in the Federation at least, being portrayed by an African-American actor at the time. Bold.
Yes.
Great. And no one draws attention to it. They don't, at no point are they like, yes, my people were slaves in the old world, but now look at me. It's like, you know what I mean? It's just like, nope.
Yeah.
Not at all. Just like they talked about that with Red Letter Media. Talked about that with Cisco, or maybe it was a Critical Drinker. We're just like, yeah, Cisco's black. How many times do they mention it? When it's relevant, which is not very often, because why would
Right.
they?
Exactly.
And so it's just like really, really bold. Now, Captain, looking at this at the time, was this controversial? Was this talked about in the trades?
No, it was controversial in the fact that most people like, oh my goodness, an African American on a TV show, but Star Trek was considered progressive. It was to be expected. It was well portrayed. By the way, the actor William Marshall is very tall. He said he
big man.
He said that Shatner felt a little bit odd, and they say he had to break out the tomato box to step on. So. Or lean forward. William Marshall is seen leaning forward, so Shatner would be the tallest character in the scene. But also, if you think about it, Shatner is protecting his character. His character is supposed to be the hero. I could understand that, but Marshall's still intimidating. Basically telling Kirk, don't worry, this will replace you unless you really like your job. I do like it's kind of rather disturbing. It's like, well, you'll have to prove it to me. That is why we're here, isn't it?
There are other things a man like you might do, or perhaps you object to the possible loss of the prestige and the ceremony accorded a starship captain. The computer can do your job, and without all that.
You'll have to prove that to me, Doctor.
That is what we're here for, isn't it, Captain?
Well, it does make me always. I was having this shower thought the other day about how, okay, so the Federation is huge, and Starfleet attracts people who are very ambitious and brave, right? They want to travel, they want to have careers that they excel at. That's probably about 1% of the Federation. What's the rest 99% of Earth doing on Earth? They don't have to work, right? They're not
doing
lawyers.
whatever they want.
Well, that's the thing,
Right.
right? Like, I'd be fascinated if there's any sort of headcanon or like quiet day in the life of living in a post-scarcity utopia where maybe you just read books all day long or write or do performances or study philosophy or travel.
That is implied. I mean, a lot of people seem to turn to sciences. I mean, like in the episode Family and Next Gen, for example, which is 86 years after this episode,
Sure.
the people trying to recreate continents in the Atlantic Ocean and come up with new farming techniques. A lot of people go out on expeditions, but there's also a very large amount of a leisure class, I would say, not having to do anything or concentrating on art. It's a total bourgeois society, if you will. Everything is provided for. Yeah, you do have to wonder what would people do if every need was met, every energy requirement was met. What would you do all day? Obviously, there is still crime. I mean, you had Samuel Cogley in that in that episode, court martial I had just mentioned. He's not a Starfleet officer; he's a civilian. So obviously,
Yeah, but I
there's still
mean, I
people
don't
who.
think that if I would be willing to bet that in the 24th century, right, Picard's time, there's probably a murder once a decade on Earth.
Mhm.
I just am not inclined to think that there's actually. I think that they've been able to. Because, okay, why do people commit murder? It's usually due to undiagnosed mental illness or, substance abuse related or
Crime of passion.
crime of passion or monetarily motivated. If you take everything out like that out and you have a progressive society that treats mental illness and can do it effectively, right? If you're schizophrenic,
Right.
you could get a procedure done and make you not schizophrenic or bipolar or something like that. Realistically, how many people are actually breaking the law on Earth? I think that it's going to be mostly what Julian Bashir's parents did, where it's breaking regulations as opposed to like violent crime.
Well, that's true. I mean, it's paradise, as Cisco points out. What do you do in paradise? I mean, his dad's still a chef, but he does it because he wants to be.
On Earth, there is no poverty, no crime, no war. You look out the window of Starfleet headquarters and you see paradise.
I mean, what do people do? Just walk around, shoot up like the fat drugs so they don't get fat because they're eating everything? It's
No, you
just
fool. You can just get transported from one location to the other and have the food taken out.
I guess, but they never actually say that.
It's
But
true.
anyway, let's get back to our story. We see the M5 take over and plot a standard orbit around a planet. And we see our first kind of run-in where Kirk tries to make a recommendation for a landing party, and the M5 does make its own decision and does not include Dr. McCoy or Captain Kirk because they're non-essential personnel.
Aren't you really more interested in why M5 did not select you and Dr. McCoy? Why were the captain and the chief medical officer not included in recommendation?
Non-essential personnel.
Which is true. They wouldn't really be essential personnel on a routine mission. It's interesting also that every time Kirk is giving an order, the crew is saying like, the M5's already computed the order, sir. We're just doing this. And then we also, basically, we're seeing Kirk's anxiety about being taken out of command. He even said that to McCoy in the scene before.
Am I afraid of losing the prestige and the power that goes with being a starship captain? Is that why I'm fighting? Am I that petty?
Jim, if you have the awareness to ask yourself that question, you don't need me to answer it for you. Why don't you ask James T. Kirk? He's a pretty honest guy.
I think Shatner actually plays it well, showing his frustration and kind of nervousness about this.
Oh, great actor. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not going over the top, but, realizing that the camera is 5 inches away from his face, that he doesn't have to do much, but, showing it. Because Kirk is a confident person. He's not arrogant, but he's confident. And he's not confident in this situation.
No, he's not. And this is also where we start to see a problem. We see that the Enterprise lights are going off all over the place. It's guys going like the decks are going off. I don't understand it. I mean, you could tell from the computer. I mean, they flash to it, kind of, I guess, undulating or cogitating, if you will. You could tell, why would the lights be on every level of the ship if there's hardly anyone there? Kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's a little bit disturbing that it doesn't ask. It's just doing whatever the hell it feels like.
Yeah,
Things
except
like that.
again, how prescient is that? Every office that you walk into these days has a motion sensor to turn off the lights when not in use.
I've located the source of the power shutdowns. It's the M5 unit, sir. That thing's turning off systems all over the ship.
Yes.
That didn't
Yes.
exist
But
at the time.
But that's a timer and also a sensor, either by heat or motion. But this is the
Yes.
computer just saying, I'm just turning off things. But, I don't really have a problem with that, but it is a little disturbing that no one queried the crew. Like, hey, is it all right if I turn off the lights and life support on deck 12, for example, or something else? It's a little bit disturbing. But that's your first inkling that not everything is well in this design of a spaceship. In fact, that's how it ends on commercial. It goes, it's turning off systems all over the bloody ship. Let's just a quick thing onto the script. DC Fontana rewrote this 5 times because the original script was felt to be bland. Wolf was upset and wanted to get credit, but that went to the Writers Guild of America. But DC Fontana actually gets the writing script on it. She included the humor between Spock and McCoy, and
The most unfortunate lack in current computer programming is that there is nothing available to immediately replace the Starship surgeon.
Did you see the love light in Spock's eyes?
The right computer finally came along.
and all the snappy dialogue. Lawrence Wolf actually just provided the outline of the story. Essentially, his story was more boring, and it didn't actually have it where Kirk talks the computer to death exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I do like that. I also like the kind of fight between Spock and McCoy. He goes, oh, look at that! Did you see the light in Spock's eyes? He found the right computer finally came along, like he's in love with it. But that's I kind of like that. What do you think of the way everyone talks to each other, the crew, the familiarity? I kind of like that.
Well, I think it's very. The dialogue is excellent in this episode. It is. The writers truly know the characters. I mean, how many episodes has DC Fontana written by this time? Like, she knows what she's doing.
Yeah. And she also was a secretary. She was very smart in this. Another kind of theme in this is arrogance. I would say that Daystrom is a man of science who's arrogant and knows a lot of things, and he's smarter than everybody else, but he's also very arrogant in what's going on. So that's
Daystrom, I don't find them to be arrogant. I just find them to be, I've met scientists like this. I've met engineers like this, right? Who are truly, they are excited about their project and they really want it to work.
Well, that's true, but there's a sort of arrogance in the sense that he thinks that his M5 unit is perfect and doesn't need change. I can understand there. He carries himself off. In my opinion, I think he comes off as an arrogant, smart guy. How dare these kind of worker troglodytes question my science and technology? I mean, it does come out of Daystrom later, so maybe I'm telegraphing his later performance here, but there is a kind of things like, oh, it's okay. The computer is absolutely fine. But I get the feeling that he had something to prove, and he's trying to do it, but he thinks he is smarter than the Enterprise crew in itself through his machine. In some ways, he's right. We come to our first war game with other Federation ships. By the way, this is the first time we get to see that there are other ships that the Enterprise is fighting. They're all Constitution-class ships, by the way. If you recall correctly, the show mentions that there are 13 of these vessels, the Constitution-class ships out there. It's the cream of the crop of the Federation. So at the time, there are 12. You have the Enterprise. You have the Constellation that was destroyed by the Doomsday Machine. You have the Exeter, last episode, was being fumigated in the Omega Glory. Here you also have the Hood, later the Lexington, the Potemkin, and the Excalibur. And the other ones that you don't see are the Farragut and the Intrepid, which you will see, which we saw in the Space Amoeba, and the Defiant, which we haven't seen yet, which is also a Constitution class, and of course the USS Constitution. So That's an interesting. But it's the first time we actually see Federation ships more than the Enterprise, even though they're all the same model. I do like that little war game thing where they're just testing them out. It's pretty cool, I thought. Did you like that a little bit, or did you feel like it was like a real naval exercise, or nah?
There goes Captain talking for 5 minutes at a time, then ask me a yes or no question. Yes.
Hey, listen, I can always replace you with an AI, so it's.
Oh, are you kidding me? It'd be extraordinarily easy at this point.
Sure, I'll just copy your voice, and then just put it on in there and have you replace going. Yes.
Yes.
It is much better than cats. I will see it again and again.
Well, what was the question again?
The question is if 2 trains are leaving, one from New York and one from Chicago, did you like the battle scene? You like the combat scenes of the Enterprise, like models and so forth? What did you think of that?
Yes, very much so. It was fun. I feel like we've seen war games in other Trek before, or after rather. When have we seen war games at other times in Trek? No, in the future in TNG.
We actually haven't. This is the first time. This is we have seen it in the I think the one.
Oh wait, right in the episode with those gross
guy.
That gross the
Zach
guy
Dorn.
who plays Data in that stupid game.
Yes. It's the one with Riker in command of the USS Hathaway, which is beat up.
Right.
That's I think the only other time we've seen a war game. That's at the Constellation. That's basically a redress of another ship. That was the only other time that we've seen it. This is a different type. They're trying out a new computer system, and that's where we are. And we come to our very first problem: beating up on a cargo ship.
There appears to be some defect in the control panel.
There certainly does. Your brilliant young computer just destroyed an ore freighter. In fact, it went out of its way to destroy an ore freighter.
The original is actually a redress of the not the Wrath of Khan, but Khan's submarine spaceship for the cargo ship. I like this redone for this cargo ship, which is from the animated series. I kind of like stunted cargo ship that they come on to. Oh, and you know what I skipped over? Captain Kirk is called Captain Dunsel.
Our compliments to the M5 unit and regards to Captain Dunsel.
Dunce? The Blazers is Captain Dunce. What does it mean, Jim?
What does it mean?
Dunsel, Doctor, is a term used by midshipmen at Starfleet Academy. It refers to a part which serves no useful purpose.
As an insult.
Why
Well,
did they do that?
That was the thing. I thought Commodore Wesley is a bit of a jackass. He says, "Congratulations to the Enterprise and Captain Dunsel." A Dunsel in real life is a real-life naval term for something that has no apparent purpose.
Oh,
so he's
wow,
calling
look at that.
his friend. He's calling his friend Captain Kirk Dunsel.
Well, just to
It's
be
like,
clear,
what an
ladies and
asshole.
gentlemen, men, at least on our end, you do have to go for blood when you're insulting a buddy of yours. There's no reason to take it easy.
Yeah, but doing this, in front of his, subordinate to officers is probably not the nicest thing to do.
It's true.
So, and it actually sends Kirk into a spiral, and that's where we see our alcoholic doctor come in and give him a Finnegan's Folly, which is one of his better medicinal things,
I may be just a ship's doctor, but I make a Finnegan's Folly that's known from here to Orion. That's one of your better prescriptions. Simple, but effective.
And then Kirk waxes about how he misses, wonder what it'd be like to be on a sailing ship with a tall ship and a star to steer her by. He laments that. But that's when we have our first problem. It's always funny to me that McCoy solves his problems with alcohol. You wonder if that's really,
Well,
what his medicine cabinet like.
As Homer Simpson once said, to alcohol, the cause of and solution to all of life's problems.
That and donuts. Yes.
Oh man, I could go for a donut right now. Let me tell you.
They had those Krispy Kreme Pac-Man donuts just came out. Those were delicious. I like those, but they were very sweet. When my 8-year-old said, "Dad, that's too sweet," that tells you that's very sweet, because an 8-year-old will kill you for sugar. But coming into the SS Woden, which is just a grain cruiser, that also, if you think about it, has an AI. It's just a pre-programmed computer going about its business. A simple computer, but the M5's targeted it as a hostile machine. They can't override the M5. Did you like the tension on that? What did you think of that, where they were closing in on the grain cargo ship?
I mean, it's great. It was reminding me of I do a fair amount of running on the treadmill, and I have all my scenes from my 80s action movies queued up to get me going. It reminded me a lot of the Ed 209 from RoboCop.
Oh, yeah. I love that. You are illegally parked. Yes, it's
Yeah.
it's but it's also kind of disturbing. Here we are. The machine is clearly losing its mind. It's arming the strongest weapons the Enterprise has, and is blowing up cargo ships. And in fact, as McCoy points out, it went out of its way to blow up a cargo ship. So when they decide to turn off the M5, not only is Dr. Daystrom devastated, like he can't believe it. He's like, you can't do that to my creation. But I think this is where we begin to actually see Daystrom losing it. Like he's not in a rush to try and turn off the M5, and he gets rather agitated on it. It's acting almost kind of like human, as Spock later points out, because what's built into the computer are human engrams. And whose? What do you think of that idea of actually putting like human emotion into a computer?
Well, that's
I think that'd probably be the end of us.
That's flirting with disaster. That's the whole point. Like
Google VO3, I think, is coming out, which is supposed to emulate human reactions and times and expressions. It freaks me out already. Are you talking to a human or are you talking to Robo Pontone? Who knows?
Well, you gotta be careful with that, because that's the thing. They get a little too quirky when you put too much humanity into them. Like if you watch Prometheus and then Alien Covenant, David is too human. That's the whole thing. He has interests. He's too curious. He likes movies. Walter, his counterpart in Alien Covenant, you can see, and it was good visual storytelling. They scaled that back. He doesn't have any interests. He doesn't have any hobbies. When he's alone on the ship, he's just walking around. He's not watching movies or playing basketball. So it makes a lot of sense why you want to keep your robots chill.
Yeah. It's actually very disturbing to me that the robots, especially in those films, that what's happened, like David is losing his mind, but becomes sort of human and becomes actually kind of a monster, and a self-interested monster for that effect. He's trying to experiment on humans, which is disturbing. But here, I guess you would say the M5 is experimenting as well to see how far it could go. And the first thing it does is, besides blow up the spaceship, is that it kills that ensign kind of horrifically. Yeah. That's that
Another one bites
that
the
guy,
dust.
by the way, is yep.
That wasn't a minor difficulty. That wasn't a robot. That thing murdered one of my crewmen, and now you tell me you can't turn it off?
That's played by Sean Harper. He was actually Lieutenant O'Neill in Return of the Archons, by the way, who later comes back in the Thalian Web. That's like the first guy he's with Sulu, Return of the Archons, although you don't like that episode.
No.
I am Landry.
Which is also a computer episode. It's kind of bizarre about that. But now the M5 is locking in and getting massive power, and they can't figure out how to turn it off. And Daystrom doesn't really want to turn it off. You can even see he's like more frustrated than anything else. And the crew is beginning to question Dr. Daystrom. They're trying to figure out what to do. I like the way they kind of split the crew up. You have Kirk, Spock, and Scotty trying to out-engineer the Doctor, and McCoy trying to analyze Dr. Daystrom to see what makes him tick to try and figure out the computer.
Have you found a solution? A way to shut that thing off?
You don't shut a child off when it makes a mistake. M5 is growing, learning.
Learning to kill.
Defend itself.
Have any thoughts as to what the split between the crew or how that was working?
I thought it was good writing, of course. That they've taken the time to kind of isolate, well, how would each person go and react to this new entity? And again, it's like, okay, how do you get to 50 minutes? It writes itself when you have a good core concept and you have decent writers. You put the central interesting thing at the center, and then you have your ensemble cast of characters react to it in very honest ways. It reminds me, actually, to a certain extent, of, I liked this quite a bit, Mud's Woman. Or no, it was I, Mud. Where, you're on the planet with these hyper evolved people and Mud, and it's that we take time to see how each character reacts to it. And it shows you what an interesting variety and cast of characters you have. In fact, if anything, that's one thing that I thought TNG lacked, in that, don't get me wrong, but there were not many ensemble episodes. Like, it was like, this is a Geordi episode, this is a Worf, this is a Riker, this is a Picard, this is Deanna,
Right.
Obviously a lot of Data episodes. There was very rarely where it's like, we're going to put everyone in a new situation and see how everyone reacts.
That's true. And this one, this one is, I would say it's kind of a Kirk-centric episode, but they all more work as an ensemble or as a team in it. They're all bouncing ideas off each other. It's also like where you also find like McCoy taking the psychological angle on it, where it's like, well, let's see if we can figure out the scientist behind this. And I like the fact that Scotty says, what we could do is like cut off power, and Spock says maybe we can figure something out because the computer's not acting in a logical way.
If Mr. Spock helps me, maybe an hour. Make it less. Why not get the man responsible in the first place? Where is Daystrom? He's with the M5 unit, watching it. I think it surprised even him.
Most illogical. Of all people, he should have known how the computer would perform. Of course, the M5 itself has not behaved logically.
Please, Spock, do me a favor. And don't say it's fascinating.
No, but it is interesting.
That they are kind of working as a team and trying to figure things out. Whereas in Next Gen, it does seem to focus on one character, and then they're also usually the focal point and the solution to the issue.
Right.
So yeah, there is a difference between the two series. You also this is also where we find out that Dr. Daystrom is basically nuts. He's upset at the fact he created the computers that run the Enterprise and most of the Federation, something called Duotronic.
Not quite positronic.
That's right. Everyone's making success off of his ideas, but he'll show them.
We will survive. Nothing can hurt you. I gave you that. You are great. I am great. 20 years of groping to prove the things I'd done before were not accidents. Seminars and lectures to rows of fools who couldn't begin to understand my systems. Colleagues laughing behind my back at the boy wonder. Becoming famous, building on my work. Building on my work.
That's where you see, oh yeah, he is the mad scientist. He's kind of clinically insane. And it's like Kirk says, yeah, but he's a genius who came up with these things. And where do you go from up? Because you can't wake up one day and say, today I'll be a genius and I'll create something. But Daystrom is basically enacting his revenge fantasy through the M5. I find that what I find actually funny out of all this is that this crazed scientist who creates this machine that later turns out to be a killer, the Federation still names the computer and science agency or group the Daystrom Institute. So it's like, so wait a minute, the guy who went off the deep end and was trying to exact revenge, you're going to name an institute after him? Is that actually really the best place for the scientists in the Federation to hang out?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's, I think that's kind of funny, or is everyone a mad scientist in there? It's a little crazy, I thought. Anyway, M5 is basically tricking the crew, hiding out, is like making them chase a wild aquatic fowl, a wild goose chase, is they come up with it to basically send a signal saying, yeah, the computer's off, when it's actually on. I thought that was genius. Something Hal didn't do.
No.
I guess you could.
Well, he was pretty good. He could have been a little bit more mercenary and actually killed Dave.
Yeah.
But he killed everyone else.
He sure did a good job, but he kept missing the target, if you will.
But you just keep missing the target.
That's right, like a bad marksman in Star Trek 2. But when we finally get past that, they're approaching now the war games, where they're facing off of the other Federation ships that don't have their shields at full raised and their weapons at minimum. Then the bloodbath begins. It's where M5 basically kills one of the starships, the Excalibur. It kills everyone on the ship. And we see Commodore Wesley, by the way, with a high back chair, which is from the Mirror Universe episode, just to make it on the Lexington. People are dying all over the place. They got to destroy that ship. They got to destroy the M5. How are we going to do that? Well, the attack force, which we see 4 Federation Constitution class ships coming after them, they have to figure a way to do it. I kind of like the way they come up with the idea. With how to defeat it, where Kirk basically talks to the computer into realizing its ways.
Murder is contrary to the laws of man and God. But you have murdered Scan the starship Excalibur, which you destroyed. Is there life aboard?
No life.
Because you murdered it. What is the penalty for murder?
Death.
And how will you pay for your acts of murder?
This unit must die.
Did you think that's overused at this point in Star Trek, or did you like that?
No, I mean, you could see that coming a mile away, right? That you just try to talk them out of it. You put them into a logical loop. That was kind of, I mean, it's very Isaac Asimov, right? It was something that had been done before, where it's just like, oh, okay, you trap them in logic. It's a logical brain, but of course reality is not logical. It's full of paradoxes and things that don't make any sense. And the closer you get to consciousness, the more you have to realize that life is kind of arbitrary and not predictable and not controllable. That's why one of my favorite, again, I've mentioned it 1,000 times on the podcast, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. The sentient AI is defeated, but not in a good way. He's angry, he's frustrated at the end, and he's lost his playthings except for one. But it wasn't just this normal like, oh well, what's the sound of one hand clapping or something like that,
Right? Yeah. I would say that the AM computer and I Have No Mouth is more like it's frustrated and almost is like a young child overreacting, and the fact that it can't have its toys.
Well, yeah, but also it's just like to the extent that what's his name, Am is trapped. He's trapped in his existence, right? He's trapped in a existence that he didn't choose, that he can't leave. It would be the equivalent of you and me being buried in a coffin and unable to die and unable to leave. That's what Am is in every single moment. Anyway, whatever, I keep on bringing it back down. Let's forget about Am right now.
Well, no, everyone should read that Ellison story, I Have No Mouth but I Must Scream. Or it's a great story, but it's man versus machine. We see this in so many other science fiction tropes, but this is one of the earlier ones. And I think it does a very good job of it. You see the ships facing off. It's actually pleasant to see various ships coming after each other and seeing more than the Enterprise. And you can see they all have different registry numbers, which is also quite nice to see that on a pure technical level. But, basically coming down to it, they first try to use Daystrom to tell the computer not to attack the ships, but he's losing his mind, and he's basically, we will crush them because we are unstoppable. It's when they realize, yep, Daystrom's lost his mind, and his creation, which is based off of his mind, engrams, by the way, are theoretical. The computer is also losing its mind because it's acting on jealousy and anger. And so therefore it's picking on the other ships.
I gotta say, this was surprising to me that at the end of the day, Daystrom comes out of this looking not great, and yet in modern day Trek, everything is named after Daystrom. It's the Daystrom Institute.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. Yeah, why would you name an institute and for this guy who's basically making a murder bot? It's like, it doesn't. It's like, why don't we go hang out at the Hitler hospital?
Well,
it just
doesn't.
doesn't.
Who knows what good he did?
No, none. But this over here with Daystrom, it's, I guess, some of the Apocrypha I've read is like he later got help and he went on to lead a productive career. But you can't tell that from here, and that's outside of the episode and everything else. But Daystrom's name stands for honor and integrity inside Star Trek, which I find hilarious when you first see how it's here.
Right.
But when Kirk finally speaks to the computer, it logics the computer to death over why must you not kill and what is the penalty for death. I actually do kind of like that. It's not like calculate to pi to the last number, or something ridiculous like that. This one is talking to the computer as if it was alive, which unfortunately I have a feeling we're all going to have to do one day.
Oh yeah, Jesus.
It's
within our lifetime. Isn't that insane?
Yeah, did you anyone take a look? There's a video of like two AIs talking to each other in something called gibber speak. I don't know if that's a real or an AI generated thing where like I'm an AI. I am too. Would you like to speak in gibber speak for faster communication? Yes, I would. I'm here to make a reservation for my human meatbag master. And they're talking to each other and I'm like, "Great. That's all we need." So Kirk is able to make the M5 unit kind of turn itself off. I mean, but his solution to prevent them being destroyed, I think, is actually quite creative. Like basically playing dead. I like that. What did you think about that idea? Do you think the other ships would buy it, or would you come in guns blazing? It's a tough call.
I would come in guns blazing. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, the Enterprise is let's hit this sucker while we still can. That's a good point, but makes you wonder how Kirk knew Commodore Wessler. He knew Bob Wesley wouldn't come in guns blazing if he saw the Enterprise adrift.
Captain, why did you feel the attacking ships would not fire when they saw the Enterprise apparently vulnerable? Logically, that is the sort of trap M5 should have set for them.
I wasn't sure. Any other commander would have simply followed orders and destroyed us. But I knew Bob Wesley. I gambled on his humanity.
It is pretty chancy. Maybe have a ship in reserve just to make sure. But I do like the way they end it. And then they go off back to Starbase. What happened to the poor Excalibur? You can go on YouTube and watch a fan-made film about the Excalibur. Like everyone's dead on it, so I guess they have to recrew that one. It's a little disturbing when you think about it. So they basically, how many out of the 12 they've lost? The Excalibur, they've lost technically the Exeter until they clean out the insides, and they've lost the Constellation. They've already lost 3. It's not too good for a ship for the most powerful Federation ship.
Yeah,
that's one of the things I keep thinking
great.
about. Yeah,
a lot of.
But I really like the story.
I mean,
go ahead.
I guess not money, but time and resources destroyed forever. Space
Right.
is a dangerous
But,
place, man.
It sure is. It's but if this is considered the best of the Federation and it's able to hold its own against the Klingons, you got to wonder what are the Klingon ships made out of balsa wood? I mean, not counting what the set designs are. It's pretty wild to think that this is the state of the art. And I kind of want to know what duotronics are.
Well, it's not positronic. It's not as good.
Yeah, I'm sure one of our fans could send us a note. It's not positronic. It's like, or is it positraction? So. It's a my cousin Vinny reference. But anyway, I actually like the actors. Like I said, we got William Marshall as Dr. Daystrom, who later comes in as Blackula in a movie. I like his as a character. Did you like him? And you said you saw Blackula before we started recording.
Yes, we did. I did. Great film. I mean, not great film, but you expect it to be a schlockfest. It's not. The actors, or the writers rather, took time to be like, well, what would that be? Why would there be an African-American vampire in Harlem, and why would he be called Blackula? But that's actually, if you watch the film, it is Dracula who infects him out of spite and jealousy, and he mocks him. He's like, oh, I'm going to call you Blackula. Like, it's supposed to be a joke name in like an insulting fashion. I found it to be very interesting, and they take it seriously. They don't look at it, I mean, it's tongue in cheek, but they don't take it not they don't do it just for laughs.
What's funny about it, the Dracula in the Blackula film, who's played by Charles Macaulay, actually is Landru. So it kind of is funny that both Blackula, the character who's William Marshall, who's Dr. Daystrom, and Charles Macaulay are in similar episodes with computers, basically, trying to control humanity and or destroy people, and then later in the same film. I think that's kind of weird coinky-dink, but that's pretty much it for this episode. I do like the way it works. I kind of just, it's a quick, tight story for me, and I think that's pretty much about it. They are able to put M5 away. Kirk reasserts humanity and himself on the ship. Spock and McCoy are basically, realizing they have their begrudging truce among each other, Which you could see that drawn out like, to put your feelings onto a computer would be a host of illogic, things like that. It's pretty funny. But yeah, that's pretty much about it on this episode. I think maybe we should come to, unless there's any other further comments or thoughts on the story.
No, we can wrap it up.
All right. Well, let's talk. Our favorite part is how much did this cost?
Oh,
what would you think it cost,
big
Mike?
cast,
In
$183,000.
Really, really close this time.
Oh boy,
it's $176,451.
Not even close. What do you mean? I'm $7,000 off.
Well, it's not that much, but in 2025 dollars, that 1968 money of $176,451 is $1,689,486.63. It was a 7-day shoot. They reused a lot of footage in the remastered edition. It's all digital effects, but they reused various models, like they used the K7 space station for where they were coming in to have the M5 installed, and they used composite shots of the Constitution class starship next to each other to make that work. And also, I actually like the beam coming out of the computer, killing the ensign. I think that's actually was pretty wild. You got the phaser shots, you got the beams, you got the beaming in. I thought it was all very well done, special effects wise. It wasn't overdone. I thought it was well shot with the special effects, but it was a lot of fun on that. So that's basically it. So I guess the next thing we should come to is our very scientific 1 to 10 scale. Mike, what would you say you would give this on our very scientific 1 to 10 scale?
I like the acting. I like the premise. I like Daystrom himself. I thought that maybe it was just a little bit too much like things that we have seen, and it was a little maybe spinning its wheels at times, just a tad. Great premise, not perfect execution, but I really did like everything else, and I liked that they were taking it seriously. Captain, I give this an 8 out of 10.
Wow. Well, I give this, I'm going to tell you right now, this is actually one of my favorite Star Trek episodes ever. I actually give it a 10 out of 10.
Oh, wow.
For me, it has a lot of everything that I like. It's got the adventure. It's got Kirk being Kirk. You've got Spock scientificing things out. You have Scotty. It's a good use of all the crew or the main cast. I like the idea of a computer taking control and humanity trying to overcome it, which is, yes, we do see it later, but we've seen it in other things. I think for Star Trek, this does it very well. It's a good story. It's a tight story. Doesn't really have a B plot, if you will. I guess you could say Kirk's anxiety about being replaced, but that's all together. I do like it, and I like all the acting. I like also Richard Daystrom a lot. I like that character. I feel for him. He's like his colleagues are basically stealing his ideas and not giving him credit. He was the boy genius who came up with a new way of doing stuff, and here we are. And he's gone a little bit nuts, and he's made his computer that's supposed to automate Starfleet go a little nuts as well. So even in the 23rd century, I don't think mankind's ready for automation. And I just hope that in our own lives, we can learn from this before it's too late. And, you are actually replaced by the, Mike Pontone 2000. And you'll say that, "I'm sorry, Captain, I cannot help you now," or something to that effect. It's very disturbing. So I do like it. It's a good cautionary tale of man versus machine. I think it's still well done. So that's what I think. But anything else you want to add to this episode, Mike? Or
nope. I dug it. I'm glad that we had a good one. Tell us a little something about next week's episode.
The next episode is another sort of alternate Earth. It's called Bread and Circuses. And I will just say, what if Rome never fell?
Oh, boy.
So that's what we come into. Yeah, oh, boy. It's coming up on our next episode of Yelling at Gaseous Anomalies. And again, as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit that bell notification. And drop us a line. And you can do it by emailing us at yellingatgas@gmail.com. And also don't forget to stop by our TeePublic t-shirt store, and you can get some nice merch. Help me move into the new office so I can afford it. It'll be great. And you look stylish at the same time. But on our next episode, again, we're coming up to Bread and Circuses. And always, Mike, it's always a pleasure doing these with you, and I look forward to hearing your reaction to that one.
Mm-hmm. And I look forward to maybe we'll do a live episode, or at least a in real time episode. I suggested that for this one, but got shot down for some mysterious reason.
Oh, probably it was either from the computer or the fact that 99% of my office is in giant crates. But that's, that's what it is. But anyway, we hope you join us in the next episode of Yelling at Gaseous Anomalies. Live long and prosper, and see you out there.
I was just trying to make conversation, Spock.
It would be most interesting to impress your memory engrams on a computer, Doctor. The resulting torrential flood of illogic would be most entertaining.